Hello. So last night, I was kind of sitting here alone. The edibles had kicked in, or they were starting to, and I was just getting to thinking about stuff, about how I'm sick, about how I've changed a lot. I've changed a lot since the pandemic. I'm just not the same person, and it's not even, it's not the weight. That's completely immaterial to anything, but these are some thoughts I had about myself. And I'm going to read them, and it might take a second video just because it's a lot. Um, so, these are, feel free to skip this. This is a little bit, self-involved. Basically, to me, it's like a chapter in one's autobiography, but it's just, it's something that you would put on LiveJournal back in the day. So, I talked a little bit about disagreement with Heather last night. I've grown and changed a lot. I remember what it was like being all of the people I've been. I remember being in all of those headspaces, and I can understand my motives and reactions to things in retrospect. I've allowed myself to evolve, but I haven't let go of any part of my past. As if one could anyway. One can lock it away in one of the back rooms, but that doesn't make it gone. I've spent my life reading. I've read pretty much everything I could get my hands on. Like it's my job to read everything. I've been impressed and awed at many things in my time. Ideas, clever wordplay, fleeting insights. But I realized something. This may seem elementary, but remember, this is a mechanism in an autistic person's head. Everyone knows the wiring is different, but there aren't that many people who can explain the wiring. So this may sound like the most well-duh thing ever, but this is part of the different wiring. I wanted to be like all of those people, but what I didn't realize was I'm only one person and they were thousands. No one person came up with all of that, and though I have always understood that on a surface level, at some point all the material I've read just sort of goes into a similar place. It's all just a mountain of words at this point. I put an immense pressure on myself to be that, though. To be able to be all of those things in one small brain. I'd feel terrible about myself if I couldn't do a play as good as Moliere's, a poem like Byron, an epigram like Wilde, etc. I realize I'm using the dead white male canon as a foundation, but that was in the zeitgeist in the years when I started reading. I branched out. But there's no shame in being better versed in I branched out, but there's no shame in being better versed in one's own culture than that of others. But I have to admit that the books everyone is supposed to have read are my bedrock. It wasn't until LiveJournal, then MySpace, then Facebook where I became a better writer. Because I just did it. The reading informed the mechanics, but the Los Angeles Unified School District did not teach grammar. I'm clueless how to explain how my language works. If I relied only on school, I think I'd eventually be okay, but I would have had a much rougher start with my writing. I understand the language only from being shown it again and again. I'm also very auditory, and watching as much stuff as I did also hammered home correct language usage. So I'm sure I come off like I completely understand and can explain what a clause is. I can't. Not even the remotest clue. I will tell people that I was raised by television, which is largely true. I was a walking TV schedule once upon a time. When the TV guide arrived, I'd get it after my mom flipped through the articles. I would then go through every page looking for two things. One, I was looking for movies, particularly in the middle of the night that I wanted to record. Back in the day, you would be surprised to know how many fairly obscure British movies I got this way. Or two, to see whether my favorite shows were reruns that week. There were circles and X's. My brain has always been hungry for knowledge, and if I wasn't going to get it from my parents, I was going to get it somewhere. Being an introverted sort, books and media were just about perfect. I was also, of course, raised by my grandmothers, my friends, teachers, anyone. I'd listen to everything anyone had to say to me, and I would take it to heart. Words were all I had, all I understood, and I was too autistic to begin to understand that others were not that way and that lying isn't an actual reality. So to begin to draw all this together, I was just sort of a lump of everything for a while there. I took everything in, did not sort through it, and operated pretty much with everything firing. It made me susceptible to groupthink. Because I also had to move around in the world. I had to deal with people, have a social life, and eventually travel. So at some point, there would have to be some kind of sorting of all of the stuff I'd gathered. I tell people that I did a lot of work on myself during the pandemic, and that is true. I've been telling people for years that all I needed was some uninterrupted time to go away, deal with everything, and it would improve my situation immensely. I know a lot of people say that, but in my case it was true. So for at least a good year I hunkered down and I dealt with myself. I tell people that I see my brain as a long hallway. There are so many rooms in this hallway. Some are neat as a pin, and some are locked away. I dealt with all of them, especially the locked ones. My past, who I am, what I believe, and how to be the person I'd be proud to be. How did I do this? Well, I slowed down. I became almost uncommunicative. I'd post here and there, I'd write things. But sitting here typing is not the same thing as maintaining a conversation with another human. I ate a lot of weed and allowed whatever happened to happen. I didn't fight the paranoia or the bad feelings. In fact, I courted them. I needed to get to the root of everything. I also needed to sort through all of the media I'd taken in throughout my life. I had to finally sit down and discern good from bad. I allowed myself to disagree with things, to be able to value what the Creator was telling me, without having to sign on in agreement with every point. Part of it was learning to separate the media I experience and myself. It's normal to see ourselves in said media and even to desire it, but I was inside my brain, not yet emerged, and something about my brain needed to relate everything I saw to me or I wouldn't be able to understand it. It isn't that I thought that this was a simulation where I was the only real person. It was more like... Bad Religion has a song called Atomic Garden. There's a line in it where Greg Graffin goes, "I'm looking out from the room inside my room," which is the truth. I was in my body, I was driving it, and I had a full sense of self, but I hadn't yet emerged out of my head into the real world. I was looking out from deep inside my own brain. I needed all those filters, or I would risk being overwhelmed. Unfortunately, it also concentrated everything I took in to a laser point on myself. Everything was me, and I admit that I was confused a lot of the time. This isn't some kind of weird cluster B obsession with self. In the absence of any kind of modeling at all, I experienced the world like a TV watcher, and I didn't know how to not do that. I wouldn't be so arrogant as to say I'm all better now, or that I did fully deal with everything. There's no way I or anyone can ever say that. And especially now when my life has become even more physical, I don't know if I'll be going back inside my head. Sometimes when things get to be too much, if I go back inside my head, sometimes when things get to be too much. I haven't so far though, and I have been through a lot in these past 6 months. Alright, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to just do a part 2. Thank you for watching and I'll be right back.